And not Ken.
Jen, Kent, same phony. I'm surprised, and I'm just talking to Kara here for a second because the rest of you are Neanderthals. Um, I I'm kind of shocked that ABC approved that script. That was just a 45-minute long piece of slander against somebody who is still living. That didn't seem cool to me.
I didn't get against like the queen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It flat out called Queen Elizabeth a murderer. Not
And
cool.
the queen just walked away like a G. Like,
Yeah.
ain't no thing.
Oh, that's
man.
too funny.
I did not relate that that was actually supposed to be our current queen. I thought it was like a fictional world, fictional queen.
Well, that's what they'll tell you, but huh?
That's a shame.
Sorry. We're not...
Okay,
Well, queens
yeah.
have been known for that. So sorry.
we're talking fat shaming. We're talking fat shaming,
Okay,
and
that's what
we
we're doing.
are going to. Who's going to do the hats off? I'm not doing a hats off
I'm
because I don't
doing
have one.
one.
So Jen has one.
I can do one.
Okay, the two
Okay.
ladies are doing a fat shaming. Or not
Cheers to
fat,
us.
Doing a hats off.
Here.
Hats off. Hats off.
Hopefully, the ladies will not be doing any.
Oh,
fat
also, real quick, before we start, remember how I said, "Hey, I'm Calvin, I'm Kara, I'm Kent, whatever." Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't come out right for some strange reason.
Okay.
Now it came out perfect, and then it got erased. So
Aw.
I need everyone real quick, as clearly as possible as you can speak into your microphone. We're gonna do the same thing. Who went for? Okay, we did it in alphabetical order. I'm Cal. I'm Kara.
Kent.
I'm I'm Cal. I'm Jen. I'm Kara. I'm Kent.
J.K. Oh yeah. Okay.
You're
yeah.
right. I was like, wait. No,
All right.
you're right. I don't know my alphabet.
So speak directly into your microphone if you can. So
Okay.
I'm Calvin.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Kara.
Kent. Ah, dang it. All right.
You're like terrible.
All right.
Kent, you're going last. Okay, all right.
Go again. Okay.
Okay. I'm Cal.
I'm Jen.
I'm Kara.
I'm Kent.
All right, cool. Hats off.
Sorry, Jen, I totally mimicked your tone too. I do that. It wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry.
You know, imitation is the best form of flattery.
No,
I'll just
okay.
keep it that way. No worries.
So who's going first?
Carrie,
I can
you
go.
go first.
Sure, I'll go. It's actually not a making fun of someone hats off for once. It's like for real. I'm really excited about this person. Did you guys hear the story of the McDonald's cashier in Chicago that shut down his register and helped a man with cerebral palsy cut up his food and eat it?
Fired. Fired immediately. That's what I'm sure happened to him.
No, they
No?
got some
Okay, good. I was going to say,
okay.
I have not
It
heard
was a
this story.
positive thing. Like
Oh,
the
okay.
person that was behind him in line, behind the disabled man in line, got some video of this cashier doing it, and she posted it on Facebook because she was just like so amazed by it, and it is pretty awesome because it was like right during the lunchtime rush, and I haven't been to McDonald's in Chicago during lunchtime, but I have been in McDonald's in New York, and if it was anything like that, it's madness. So the fact that he shut down his register to go help this guy was probably not great for business, but in the long run, apparently it is great for
Yeah,
business.
that is very good for business.
I would say because he got some. His name's Kenny, and he got tracked down from this video going viral, and yeah, I just think that's really sweet. That's just being a human and caring more about that than what your manager says. I think that's great.
I think it's
Well-
great that somebody did something good and is getting like praised and that's being promoted. People
Yeah.
want to go there because of it because sometimes it's just goes on noticed and
Is
that's really cool.
Is it odd that I'm the only one here trying to go through the McDonald's menu and think of what food would need to be cut up?
Well, he didn't have like use of his hands, so like he actually needed
so
to.
everything has to be cut out then.
But it had to be like cut up, and he actually.
cerebral palsy or quadriplegic?
Well, no,
No.
you just don't know enough about it, huh?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I don't know
No,
about
he
it.
has cerebral palsy. He just doesn't have good control of his limbs. Like he can use them, but he doesn't have great control.
A lot of times, and I'm coming from the experience of working with a lot of people who've had cerebral palsy. There's different variations. Sometimes they have full control, and sometimes they have almost none and are what you're talking about. But a lot of times a very common thing, even when they have use of their limbs, is they'll have a limited range of motion, and their hands will be a lot more like crippled up, like you would have like an older person who's got,
all right.
Maybe arthritis, that kind of thing.
I apologize to any listener who has cerebral palsy or anybody who's worked with cerebral people with cerebral
palsy.
I've got you here where like I've alienated all nurses on the planet.
You just don't know what she was like. You didn't know what she meant.
Right, I had no point of reference.
Yeah,
so.
that's all.
No, I have an extended family member. He, my cousin's husband, who has cerebral palsy, and I didn't know about it for 3 years. So
yeah, it can be
definitely
really
affects
minimal.
people different ways.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I've worked with people who...
Hats off to Kenny. Kenny, you
Yay.
are awesome.
Good for you, Kenny.
You're a hero.
Yay!
I mean, maybe you're not management material, but you're an excellent cashier.
Oh, excellent human being.
I would work for him. I'm just saying.
Sure.
For sure.
All right, so my hats off is actually to this mom who, I don't know if you guys probably read it, but there's a mom actually from Michigan in the Fort Gratiot area. I guess that she had a sick baby at home who'd been up all night and all of this and was having just some bad time. And so she stopped by and did what a lot of people would do. She decided to get herself a coffee as a treat, a good coffee, because at that point I'm sure she had way too much of the bad stuff. And then she also decided to get some donut holes to bring home to her child, hoping that maybe that would give her child some comfort as a treat. And, everybody does that. When your child's sick, you give them what they like to comfort them.
Right now, every Canadian listener is going, that's a good mom right there. That's a good mom.
So apparently, why in line, and I mean, anybody who's had a sick kid keeping them up all night, we probably don't look your best, right? You're like, Well, apparently there was some really nasty people behind her, and they were making, just different snickerish remarks towards her hair, she looks like a whale, all of these kind of really horrible things. And instead of lashing out, which I'm sure she felt like I would have felt like doing that, she did what I think is so noble and honestly probably the most Christian thing as well that she could have done. Instead, she decided to buy their coffee. And then she kind of posted something on Facebook about it.
And then she threw it in their face.
That's not the maybe Christian way, but
I'm a better person than you. Boom, roasted.
But she kind of brought it out to say, look, you don't know that I had this baby that kept me up all night, and the donut holes were actually for her. You don't know that I've lost. Apparently, this woman had lost over 100 pounds. She recently lost 177 pounds. That alone, I think, deserves a hats off. Okay, and all of these different things. So she kind of said, "Look, you don't know what the person you're seeing has gone through, and your words hurt." And that's kind of what she said is, I chose to not be nasty back to you, but you need to know that sometimes you don't know what's going on. You don't know the full story.
Did she say that to them?
No, she posted it.
Oh,
she posted, the donuts weren't even for me. But on top of that, I just lost this weight. The coffee was a treat because my child's been up all night.
Okay.
Sick. So anyhow, I want to give her hats off because of the way she handled it. I think, wow,
Well, hopefully the donuts were the treat, not the coffee was a treat.
No, the coffee was for her.
Oh, okay.
Because her kid had been keeping her out. The donuts were for her child.
I have to. Not my turn to do a hats off, but I got to do a hats off to us. I believe this is the first time where both of our hats off were actually like genuine. We weren't making fun of anybody.
We are evolving as people.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I feel like
we're becoming better Christians.
I feel like next week, Kent, you and I have to get we have to find the people we can humiliate the most.
Oh,
well, honestly,
and then we fall from
grace. We had both of the girls who are sweet. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, my no spoilers, but my hats off fell out of for next week. Fell out of the sky this morning when I was scanning Twitter, and it's like, yep, that's it. That's the guy. Yep.
No, you guys always bring such comic relief to it.
Yes.
We appreciate
I
it.
really agree. I like the storytelling element that you both bring to the Pat stuff.
And it is.
I'm immersed.
and I are like,
I'm
"This
immersed
is
in the world.
sweet." Aw.
In all fairness, it is easier to tell a story about an idiot who does something stupid than it is to tell a nice.
It's been a
about
while
nice
since
guy.
we recorded our last episode at the time we're recording this, and I feel like so many idiots have come
Oh,
along
yes.
since last
Yes.
time.
There's a lot of them in the world.
So everybody who's listening right now, this has been your reprieve from us making fun of anybody. But next week it's back on,
Mm-hmm.
like Donkey Kong.
I was just gonna say that.
You could just see his face while making those noises. It would have made your day.
Anyhow, okay. So, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. We are talking about fat shaming this week, and this is a topic.
Jen's hats off is oddly prescient.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, it is.
And mine
right?
was about McDonald's, so I mean.
Okay, yeah.
Planted,
Yeah,
right?
food and food.
That's
you,
right,
food
Kara.
You shouldn't eat,
Greasy
and then
food.
assumptions people are making about people's body weight and things like that, or just appearances in general. So, this was a topic that Jen and I actually had a conversation about this because of the video that had gone viral of the comedian, and I think all of us had kind of talked about this on my Facebook wall for a little bit as well. Just trying to get some people's ideas about fat shaming and if it's a thing or not. But Jen, since this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to you and probably affects you more than it affects me, why don't you kind of give some commentary? Or you can just cough. That's cool too, even though nobody heard it.
No, you just called me
now
out.
I just sound crazy.
Out.
Cat's wearing sunglasses.
I know what's going on right now.
You're
with
so
Karen.
bright, gotta wear shades.
I know. Like a blues brother.
I know it makes me seem like a DB, but I left my other ones in the car. So I
You
would
left your other
I would rather
sunglasses in the
see-
car?
No, my non. These are prescriptions. These are not. I'm not. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, so I saw this video and I
At the
honestly
time we're posting this has been several weeks.
right, but
since that
I
video.
saw this video about this lady who was she was going against this other video, right? I guess that had gone viral, and I hadn't seen the first video. I'd only seen this one, but she actually puts clips of the video that she's referencing in there. So one, I really liked that she didn't just paraphrase and this and that. Like she used the actual video, so it gives a lot of relevance to it. But she is responding to this lady who, and you mentioned that she's a comedian. Maybe she was trying to act this way, but she.
Right. Pause just for a second. All this exposition is just for us because I'm actually going to start the podcast with the audio from that video. So.
Okay, so in this video though, she gets just nasty. I mean, she's just.
As long as this is exposition just for us, are you gonna? How much of that audio are you gonna play? I was surprised at how little of it can be played on a family website.
Hmm. Right, because she gets that nasty and grotesque. And so, anyhow, this lady, though, I feel that is responding to her is she's got a lot of decorum, I would say. She makes some very strong points, and she doesn't get nasty. There's a few times that she's like, and she might kind of mock it a little bit, but even lighthearted. And she just kind of brings her points and pretty much says, you're just being a nasty person. And so it brought up this conversation of, is fat shaming a thing or is it not a thing? And it just kind of snowballed from there. So to take that, you could take that away if you want.
Yeah, so I guess that's where we should start the conversation is, and this is where the conversation will drop in, is fat shaming a thing? Is it real? Does it exist?
Well, I mean, to me that's like asking, do hats exist? I mean, yeah, it's a thing. Yes. I mean, there are as many different kinds of shaming as there are different kinds of people who are willing to do it. and there are some really unfortunately terrible people out there who never fail to surprise me. I mean, I don't know. Does fat shaming exist? I can't. Well, now that I think about it, I mean, I don't know. Delete this. I got nothing.
Every time Ken says delete this, it makes it.
It makes it. All right. Well, now that I know it's not getting cut out, I just I don't know. I guess for me to answer that, it would have to be defined, I guess, as to what it is, and I will bet nearly anything that the people who get accused of it and the people who feel they're victims of it have wildly different definitions.
Yeah, I would definitely say that the comedian, if she can be called that, some people are like, she's not funny. Like apparently you don't like fat jokes. But I think the people who are affected by it the most don't see it as comedy. And then, of course, those who are...
Isn't that the case for any comedy, though?
Well, yeah.
Where you're the subject, typically?
Yeah, if you're the subject, it's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you know what? Dave Chappelle, for years, has characterized white people, and white people find him hilarious, and he's characterized black people, and black people find him hilarious. Key and Peele characterized black people, and it's all satire. So it's a different kind of comedy.
Sure.
But we are still the kind of the focus of the humor.
And there's a way in which that's funny,
Yeah.
right?
But I guess for me, and I had a huge conversation about this on my Facebook wall in preparation of doing this, but that was a few weeks ago now because the video had come out several weeks ago, and then we just weren't able to record in a timely manner, unfortunately. But it's still an important conversation. But the more originally when Jen and I were talking about it, I said I just don't think fat shaming is really a thing. I think it's honestly just fat people making excuses. But now, since I've had some time to dwell on it, I think I'll back off a little bit of fat shaming not being a thing. However, I would still go so far as to say that I feel like, or believe to be the case, that there are people who say something is fat shaming when it is not. Just like there are things that happen to me that sometimes people want to say, Calvin, don't you think that's racist? And I'm like, not everything is racism. Not everything's racism. Some things are, and some things aren't. Some things look like they're racist, but they're not. And some things don't look like they're racist, and they very much are. And so when it comes to something like fat shaming, let's be honest, I'm, 155 pounds. I have been since 10th grade. I'm 6'1", so I'm really slender. I have a very hard time putting on weight. A lot of women hate me when I say that kind of thing. So I have no point of reference, really, for what it is like to be fat shamed or to be spoken of lowly. But I guess the reason I come to the position of saying not everything is fat shaming is because the majority of the people that I have spoken to about fat shaming in particular in their own lives are often people that are making excuses for why they have an unhealthy lifestyle. And Jen and I are probably going to, we've had a conversation about that since then, and we're going to talk about some things that I've done and I assumed were healthy and were not. Like she's got me juicing now, which is kind of crazy. But that's for later on in the conversation. But I do find that a lot of people that I've talked to about being fat shamed have this really extreme view, and I'm going, I feel like you're making excuses for why you can't eat healthy, or why you can't work out, or why you can't do this, that, and the other to change this condition that you have that is easily changeable.
Yeah,
and I use condition for lack of a better word. I don't know that being fat is a condition, but for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think the crux of this discussion does really lie on the definition of fat shaming, because I I wouldn't say that fat shaming doesn't exist. Of course it does. People get shamed for all kinds of stuff. And I've known people that didn't like people that were fat. They just said straight out, oh, I don't like that. I don't like fat girls because I had a sister that was fat and I really hated her, so I hate all fat girls now. It's like, well, okay. that's obviously real. Like, I mean, it does happen to people.
Yeah, that's an indicator of a bigger problem in that person's life.
Yes. And I mean, there's some different, severity to that. Some people are, if they don't know anyone that's overweight, it's really easy to, judge, oh, they're just lazy, and I don't like them because of it. And I think that the second video, the girl from TLC, she made a really good point in that you can't look at somebody and really know what's going on with them. Like, yeah, some people might be fat because they're lazy and don't eat right and don't work out, and some people might have medical problems, and some people might have suddenly gained 50 pounds because one of their friends just died and they got depressed, and just to kind of to be more sensitive about it is definitely the way to go. I do think talking about weight is important. I do think that it's important to open up the conversation, and I think that for me what's difficult is because I'm so aware of this fat shaming movement, or I don't know, the claim that it's happening everywhere, and I don't know what the definition is, so I'm afraid to talk to people about weight at all, because I'm afraid that they're gonna think I'm fat shaming them. It really stalls the conversation. I think in particular, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I think of a young girl that I know who she's very, very overweight, as is her whole family, and we would go do things together, and she would, we all would be running up the hill, and she'd be taking the long, winding road because she can't climb the hill like we can, and it just made me feel I feel sad because I don't know if there's anybody in her life that is helping her overcome that. But I don't know how to talk to her about it. I don't want to bring it up to her because I don't want her to feel like that's all I see when I look at her. I think that's, for me, it's difficult because I get why this girl, why Nicole made the video. I think she's a bully, and she did it totally wrong, but I get why she felt like she wanted to say something. I think she was really going for laughs rather than empathy.
I don't have a long speech, not Kara, that you're just gave a long speech.
Go on.
But just a thought that I had when I was watching.
4 years.
Yeah, and that, Calvin, is not a long speech.
It is not. The guy before him gave a really long speech.
It's a exceptionally short speech. But speaking of racism, but as I'm watching Nicole Arbour's video, I had two thoughts. It was a moment, I guess, of cognitive dissonance. Because I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this woman is, I can see why she makes a living doing this. She is funny. She's a good writer. She's a good video editor. But it's kind of like saying, it's kind of like watching a very near the end Anakin Skywalker and applauding his force powers. Because she's very talented and she's very funny, and I can tell that she's a terrible person. Like I couldn't spend more than I mean, the video was rough. I guess 5.5 minutes long, and that's more time than I would want to spend in a room with Nicole Arbour, and she is quite conventionally attractive. So when you say I can't spend more than 90 seconds in a room with her, that says a lot about a person's personality.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's the weird thing. You said she's conventionally attractive, and when I look at the two women who are in, okay,
the video.
What's her name? May. What's her the girl who gave the rebuttal? I've forgotten her name at this point.
I never got it.
But she's from TLC. She's got her own television show, My Big Fat
Fabulous Life.
Yeah, My Big Fat Fabulous Life. But of the two women, I am more attracted to the Whitney Way Thor. Okay.
Whitney. Okay.
Thank you, Google. So Whitney Way Thor. Of the two women, physically speaking, I am more drawn to the comedian, and a lot of that has to do with media representation of women's bodies and things like that, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if I had much to say there. Just kind of, it is interesting that I'm preconditioned, even though that is not, Jen, that's not your body type. You're not the first. You're more, you're a lot lighter looking than Whitney Waythor.
Than Whitney, yeah.
But
I'm kind of in the middle of the two.
Yeah, but you're closer to her body size and shape than to
I'm closer to Whitney's
comedian.
body type than
Right.
I am Nicole's.
And so that's why this conversation is kind of very important to you.
Mhm.
So, but we've kind of weighed in a lot. What are your
Yeah,
your
so,
thoughts?
okay, my thought is, one, I personally, looking at, not to go back to like Sunday school lessons or whatever, but my thought is, out of the two, like when you're taught as a child, you're always taught that true beauty is on the inside, right? And I think that's an important lesson to teach kids. It really is. But only one of these women I saw as that. And I think Whitney showed a lot of that. She wasn't a nasty human. She also didn't make excuses for certain things either. She said, yeah, you know what, I am this, this, and this, or this can be true, but this is also true, or this doesn't give you a right to be a bully, which is really what we're talking about. People can be bullied for a number of things. But quite commonly, if you look at, even in schools where a lot of kids get traumatized from bullying, weight can have a huge standing of the reason in those reasons. It's typically either they don't have the right clothes, or something, they're a nerd, so they don't dress stylish. They or they're not the right body type, right? Those are like the big three, I guess you could call it. I mean, and that's kind of overgeneralizing certain things. There's obviously subgroups to some of those, right? But typically, the athlete, the cheerleader, they're not the ones that get bullied typically. If anything, a lot of times they're often not, I don't want to paint a picture that they're all bullies, but they're usually not the receiver of it.
Right, they're in the in crowd and the other people are in the out crowd.
And so when you look at things like fat shaming, there's very much an awareness for some of those other things. People are very proactive of trying to get away from, okay, your labels don't make you. That's the whole hipster movement to an extent, right? People, there's no doubt or denial of people getting teased because they're the brains, right? Because then later you realize that those people are your boss later, right? But there's no denial of that. But there's not a lot of proactive talk in a lot of areas or circles of it being your body image, where and my heart goes a lot to the younger generation, because I feel like first of all, in America, it's increasingly growing in size. It's not uncommon for people to be overweight or for people to know somebody who is. So it is a rising problem, and that's a different discussion as to why, for maybe another time. However, it's very much a prominent thing that people are dealing with, and it's like any issue. When you deny it's there, it doesn't help anybody.
Right.
So I think to deny that fat shaming is a thing is really tragic.
I think what makes me less apt to, in all honesty, what makes me less apt to care is when everybody jumps on the bandwagon and says that every form of speaking about someone's weight or size or shape as a form of or being fat shaming. And I mean, it's kind of the way I look at it is almost like gluten, right? All of a sudden everybody was gluten free. Everybody had celiac disease, right? Like why? How did everybody have celiac disease? And so, but it's only white people, because apparently it does not affect black people. But,
and I'll be the first to say that I am a gluten free shamer. I am a gluten bear. If somebody That's just
Okay.
ridiculous. But anyway, moving on.
You're just a picky eater. But like everybody all of a sudden had this gluten intolerance, and I've seen some people. Jen and I know someone who lost a lot of weight by cutting gluten out of their
But you're also
diet.
cutting a predominant amount of their carbs
Right.
out.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is, almost every person that I talk to that is overweight has some reason other than the fact that they just don't like to work out or eat healthy. It's always, oh, this happened in my life and I got depressed. Okay. Or, you know what, I have this disease and it caused me to gain weight. Okay. But that's everyone. No one ever says, you know what, I just don't like going outdoors. I don't like exercising. And I think if people were more honest to begin the conversation rather than starting off with excuses, I would be more apt to listen. And I think that's where this comedian is kind of coming from. Like, look, no, you're not depressed. You're not, you're not this, that, and the other. You're fat and you're lazy. And you can look at shows like The Biggest Loser. No, not everybody has time to exercise all day long and has a personal trainer and all those things. But the fact of the matter is the people that are on Biggest Loser start off at like 300, 400 pounds, and then by the end, they're down to like, something manageable, 200 pounds, which is still heavier than me, but, it goes to show that it can be done. And so I guess my issue is if the conversation doesn't start honestly, I'm not willing to have it. Additionally, and this is an appearance thing. We do say what's on the inside matters because God looks at the heart and things like that. And we teach everybody that. However, I'm black, and so because
Wait.
I know, right?
What?
This is news to me.
Ow.
We're not just counting. We're just counting this out of sad. So.
Sorry.
Because Jen doesn't see color.
We're gonna have to have a conversation after this episode.
Here the thing about it is, as an African American, I have always known that I have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition in the culture. But that's a sweeping generalization, but it's pretty true.
And that is what I've heard on Scandal.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe I should watch Scandal. Seems like it's very at the forefront of racial conversations. But I have learned to carry myself a certain way. I don't speak what my mom likes to call ghetto knees. I dress nicely whenever I leave the house, even if it's to go across the street to the other building to grab my mail.
You don't go in PJs.
I don't go in PJs. I don't go in sweats. If I am in sweats, I'm generally out jogging, right? So it's exercise clothes. The clothing matches what I am doing in that moment. And so generally when I leave my house, I dress nicely. I'm going to go do another podcast. I've been invited to be on a podcast after this tonight, so I'm going to go record that later this evening. And when I go, even though it's audio, there's no video, I'm going to dress nicely. And I've learned to do that because there are particular perceptions people have of black people. So if I wore my hat to the side, or I wore saggy jeans or clothes that are too big for my body, that would not negate the fact that I have 2 undergrad degrees, a master's degree, and I'm working on my second. It would not. However, the perception people have of me immediately is that I have none of those things, and people are unwilling to talk to me. So if I dressed slovenly or spoke ineloquently, I don't know if that's a word, so that I just did speak.
Maybe you did.
I just spoke ineloquently. I don't know. But if I spoke with a poor tongue, I'll put it that way, people would be less apt to speak with me. And so I wonder if when it comes to fat people, I've heard that sometimes clothing just isn't made for fat people, which is sad, but if they carried themselves a little bit better. Like Jen is not a slender woman, and I was attracted to you because you carry yourself a lot better than other fat people do. And then of course your personality, I learned your personality and things like that and fell in love with all that. But physically speaking, there's still the physical thing that you see to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And even though you didn't look like the cover model on any number of women's magazines, you carried yourself better than I think a lot of other fat women do. And so for me, I wonder if that is a reality that fat people should take into consideration.
I think there is something to that, and I also think that that's something that, honestly, my mother always taught me. Yeah, you can't wear that. That doesn't look good on you. You're too big to wear this. You're too. And I remember, like that's not easy to sometimes even hear because you're like, that's in style. I want to wear it. But she was right. Learning to dress for your body, whether it's big, small, or in between, I think is important, and that's part of loving yourself and self-respect. I think that that's really key, and learning to love yourself and have confidence. But I think that that is part of what this no fat shaming movement is. They're sick of girls thinking they're fat when they're not. They're sick of girls having eating disorders or undervaluing themselves and allowing people to not value them as they should be. And they're sick of clothing lines not making clothes for them so that they can carry themselves in a better fashion and be in fashion and in style. We don't need a tarp hung over us. A big common thing in the clothing industry for if you're overweight, if you're not skinny, everything is supposed to be like very baggy, which in my opinion also doesn't make you carry yourself well. If I put a bag over myself, I'm ashamed of myself, right? So part of that movement is very positive things, it's things that say, look, you don't have to try to be this model in the magazine. I know so many girls who are not what I would call fat, and they still think they're fat. I don't hear it. Can you speak to this too? Do you know one woman who doesn't think she's fat?
No.
Okay. So part of the fat shame, like the anti-fat shaming movement, I should say, is in the body love movement, which are kind of coincided, isn't just about, it's not really about the don't do anything for your health. That's not what they're talking about. They're saying love yourself. If you love yourself, you'll also take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So they're very they're very co-joined, I guess you could call it. And the movement is against Cosmo and the fashion industry that says you have to be a completely unhealthy size to be what we consider acceptable in society.
Earlier, Kent said that there are arguably some really horrible people out there, right?
Yes.
And arguably.
Yeah. We know.
Arguably.
There are.
And so my question that comes out of that then is like the body positive movement. We had a podcast about this a while ago.
Yes.
I think this was before you were on, Kent. Kara, I don't know.
Kara wasn't on.
It was just before I came on.
Yeah, it was just before I came on. And so
I was just a fan then.
Someone remarked on that particular episode. They weren't on the episode. They emailed me later, and she had said, and this is a woman who had lost over 100 pounds naturally, no surgery or anything like that, and she said, my problem with the body positive movement is that it creates an excuse for people to stay in an unhealthy lifestyle, and while the body positive movement is not saying to any women whatsoever, I mean, I've been researching it, none of the body positive movement is saying, hey, you know what, it's okay to be fat and unhealthy.
Right.
They're saying it's okay to be fat. And I think what ends up happening...
And be okay with yourself.
Right. And so I think people take that and run with that. You do have the couch sitters who say, you know what, my body is beautiful the way that it is, and they won't do anything because of this message. And so you have people who are objectively terrible like that when they should be doing things to make their lives healthy, whether they would lose weight or not, at least be healthy.
But okay, let me just stop right there.
I want everybody else to get in on this. I'm sorry.
I need to pose this question to you. If we're going to go there, then I also think that this question is necessary. I think that, and since we're talking to a crowd that's maybe not all, but predominantly Christian, we got to be relevant, right? To do that, I think is the same as people who try to twist the gospel and say, oh, well, you know what? If you love everybody, then you're accepting everything. And we have to not muddy the waters there, because just because you love yourself and your body doesn't mean that you're not trying to constantly work towards a better self. So in Christianity, let's just pose that as an example. In Christianity, we're told that essentially we're all the same at the foot of the cross, right? We're all sinners. We're all None of us are above needing grace. Okay, so if that's the case, then we all what? We all, no matter where we're starting, need to constantly strive to be a better self, to be what? More Christ-like. That's what we're called to do.
Right.
We're also called to, what if God is love, we're called to love everybody. That doesn't mean that we love them like we don't love them because of how they perform. We love them despite how they are, right? Because that's what Christ did for us. He died for us while we were still sinners, and because he loved us, we run to him, right? So because he loved us, because he first loved us, we can love him. Because he first loved us, we can strive to stop doing those things that we know lead to death, because sin leads to death, right? So we're on a constant journey of bettering ourselves, but if he loved us, who are we to not love us? I had a really big epiphany moment one time. I was studying the Word, and in all honesty, I hated myself because I was not the epitome of what Cosmo and the world tells you need to be. And I had tried and tried and tried to get there. And honestly, yes, I would try and I would stop and I would try and stop because you get defeated. And that's not okay. But at this moment, this intersection with God, he stopped me. I was reading Romans 8, how that nothing can separate you from the love of God. And in that, God said, Jennifer, if I love you despite your lack, who are you to not love you? Who are you to say that my creation is lacking? And I stopped and I asked God to forgive me, and I repented in that moment. And I went, God, you're right. You're right. Despite my lack, despite my imperfections, God loved me. And in that moment, that was actually more empowering to love myself and to take care of myself than anything else. And the body positive movement and the body love movement, or whatever, fat shaming, that is not the same as that power of God. But it still starts there. If we're supposed to love ourselves, love propels you to change, not the other way around.
Okay.
Karen,
we've hijacked this whole conversation, so I want some commentary.
I'm glad. I think Whitney made a really good, probably my favorite point she made, is that, fat shaming or bullying somebody about their problems doesn't work. It actually has the opposite effect. So somebody is, telling someone over and over that you are fat, you should be ashamed of yourself, is actually just going to make somebody feel worse and probably not lead them towards change. Whereas, like, a better approach, like a truth in love kind of approach, is like, you actually really care about me and aren't just saying this because you're trying to, like, get a lot of views on YouTube or wherever. So I thought that was just a really great point. I do think that it's important for Christians to talk about health. I don't know if you guys know Patrick Mead. He talks a lot about he's a preacher in the Church of Christ, but he's a pretty big name. A lot of people know him, but he talks a lot about how gluttony kind of being one of the overlooked sins that people kind of don't really talk about, or they don't really count it.
That's very true.
Yeah, don't really. Oh, it's fine, like, let's talk about how much we want to give to the poor, and then let's go, eat our weight in fried chicken at potluck or something. It's like, okay. And there's something to think about, like, if you are, always overeating, and then you step outside your house and you see homeless people that are starving on the street, like, there has to be like a disconnect there of some kind. Like, maybe something isn't quite right here. I have more than I need, to the point where I'm like, just like indulging myself, and there are people in my neighbors who are in need, and maybe I can balance that out a little bit better. I think you made a great point, Jen, in that, it's like the love of God overcomes all of our physical ailments. So whether that's any kind of eating disorder, whether anorexia or like a food addiction, because both of which are problems.
They're both equal eating disorders.
They are, absolutely. And I think that it's so important to understand that Christ does overcome all of those, but Christ also brings us into fullness, and so we die to ourselves, and so we, in theory, well, and this is true, but we don't always believe it, that, you know, he helps us to overcome the challenges that we have in our lives. We die to ourselves physically, so the things that I want, like the things I want to sit on my couch and eat Doritos are not. Sometimes I make that choice, but sometimes I'm compelled by the love of God to do something else, to play with my son, to go out and, you know, take care of my yard, to take care of the temple that he gave me, to not be idle, to not glamorize a lifestyle of unhealthiness, because I want to be a good example to my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not equating fitness with spirituality, but I am saying that
I think leading by example is very valid.
Yeah, and
I think there's a place for it in the church, and I think it's a problem to feel like we can't ever talk about obesity because we're so afraid of offending somebody. But I think there's a way to talk about it in a really loving way that's genuine, caring, and be like, you know what? Like, I want to be healthy. I feel a lot better when I'm taking care of myself, and I know that you'll feel a lot better too, and we'll all be a lot more useful in this world if we can, use our bodies to their fullest extent.
Right. You just how are you invited into that conversation?
Right.
Jen and I, we're in a relationship with each other, so we can have that conversation. Speaking of which, she had me. I love documentaries, so she had me watch a documentary called Hungry for Change, because we had been arguing about this whole fat shaming thing and is it real and all that kind of stuff. And again, I run, I bike, but I eat anything I want. Like I would eat. I used to have a website called Twinkies and Cherry Coke, because that's my favorite snack food, right? And so I can eat all this stuff, and she's like, no. You think that just exercising is just it? That's all all that you need? And I was like, well, I can eat whatever I want because I'm running 8 miles a day and I'm biking, blah blah blah. And then she had me watch this documentary, and I was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff that I'm ingesting is toxic. It's killing me slowly, and I'd rather.
With its song, it's killing you softly.
It's killing me. Thank you.
All right, yeah.
Close.
Thank you for that, Lauryn Hill. Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
We have to sing
We have to have like a dance break, a song break in every podcast.
But continue.
Smooth Jam brought to you by obesity. No. I really had to take stock of my own life. Again, at the very beginning of this conversation, I said I don't really have a point of reference for this, and because I have the body that's generally seen in men's magazines and specifically like running magazines, not like the bodybuilder magazines, just so we can be clear on that. I've got a body that looks nice naturally because I'm is that a mesomorph? I was not good at anatomy.
Well, it's what you inherited from your
right.
genes.
I've got genetics that make it very.
Is
hard
that
for
a
me
kind
to
of Decepticon? A morph?
Yes, it's a Decepticon.
But is that
in shapes?
Right, because he ate junk. If I ate what he ate, I would be so enormous. But continue.
Yeah. So because of that, I mean, it's very easy for me to, because I have this body that I've inherited. It's very easy for me to look at someone who's fat and say, "Oh, you're just being lazy." And you're just eating whatever
and just
you
a
want to
plug
do.
here, I am not a lazy person.
And Jen is not a lazy person. She makes me feel lazy. But the thing is, because of that, I would just eat anything and think that I was healthy. And then she had me watch this documentary, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ingesting all this stuff. So now I'm starting to change my diet and try to bring my rhetoric, my actual lifestyle, into line with my rhetoric. If I'm going to have these kind of conversations and I'm asking fat people to start off honestly, then I need to start off honestly.
Then he has to drink the juice that makes him want to barf.
Oh my god.
He drank one he didn't like, so I was teasing him. I said,
I drank it. Literally made me vomit.
I drank
What was in it?
Well, it was a very vegetable-based juice, so it
I'll
didn't
bet it
taste
included
like fruits.
wheatgrass.
It did. It did.
Yes, of course it did.
Kale?
It was gross.
So I was like, well, I could stomach it, so come on.
It was nasty.
Life's too short to eat something that tastes terrible.
That's what my grandma would tell you.
So
but...
eat gluten. Eat gluten.
Eat all the gluten.
Yeah,
you should add a little gluten in that juice.
Bottle. Just saying, it won't happen.
Well,
Kara,
go ahead.
Kara, I was just going to say, Kara, who just said life is too short to eat something that tastes terrible. I have shirts that weigh more than you.
Yeah.
It always
You're
comes
not
back
allowed to
Kara's.
say that.
This is
There are healthy things that taste good. It's moderation.
Only
Yes.
Kara, somebody who looks like Kara, can get away with saying that. If I said that, people would be like, that's why she looks that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all the time I've got. I gotta get out of here.
Kara, I love
unfortunately.
Okay.
So we'll see you Tuesday night at 8:30.
I'm
Sounds
good. Yep.
good.
All right.
All
I'll talk to you
right,
guys
see
later.
you then.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.